Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Mitchell Blake with FISHIBX. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Today's topic, we're supposed to be on the bay fishing today, but the weather has thrown a kink in our plans. So I'm going to bring you the next best thing, actually the application we were going to use for today. I want to talk about popping corks. Now, popping corks get talked about. If you've ever been to a fishing seminar, I'm certain they talked about popping corks. If you've ever, there's 1,000 videos on popping corks. I wanted to show you guys today, kind of break it down for you at how I use popping corks, why I use popping corks, and which popping cork that I choose to use at any given time. And now this video can go on, but I'm going to hit the highlights of it. Hopefully you'll take something home from it. Now, I have used popping corks to catch everything from trophy red drum to slot size drum to trout, got flounder on them, stripers on them, you name it. It is a great inshore saltwater application. Brackish water is great for our area throughout the inner banks of eastern North Carolina, especially fishing the Pamlico River, Pamlico River, Neuse River, Pungo River, even our western part of the sound, eastern part of the sound. Anyways, it's a great item used in a lot of different places. So let me break it down for you, kind of crash course 101 popping cork. When you go into the tackle shop, there's going to be 20 different corks to choose from a lot of times. And you're sitting there wondering like, hey, what do I need? What's the differences? So I'm going to get to it. Directly here in front of me are some of the larger corks. Can be used to catch, what I use them for mainly are red drum and trout. I will use the big corks to catch any size fish. And in doing so, I could put it on a rod and reel application and I can get as loud as I want. Otherwise, I'm not limited on the volume, or I can get if I'm in small fish, I can soften that up. Whereas if you use a smaller cork, you're going to be limited on your volume range. So I'm not scared to use a big cork even if I'm around small fish. If I know there's big fish in the system and I see a big swirl or I'm hit a situation where I need to get loud, I can get loud. If I'm in a situation where the water's a little bit rough and I need to get loud to compete with either white caps or a little ripple on the water, you can do so with these bigger corks. Now, let's separate the big cork application, okay? As you can see here, I'm actually going to turn these this way where you can see them. You'll see concave and convex application here. Your concave corks are going to be even louder than a situation like this. You're going to have this end tied to the rod and reel, this end tied to a leader to soft plastic of choice. Okay. When you pop it with the rod and reel, it's going to turn down and it's going to make a ploop or splash, and then it's going to stand up erect and the lure weight's going to make it fall. You're going to snatch it again, it loads up, makes a splash, ploop, plop, whatever, how much volume you're putting, it's going to stand back up erect, lure's going to fall, lets you know you can pop again. Okay. You're limited on this cork to the volume that you can make, okay? Stay with me. Concave situation, the exact same thing. This is tied to your rod and reel. This leader actually goes to a lure. Okay, now when you pop this, it's going to stand down in the water and you're going to push water. So this is a lot louder application. It's going to make a different sound. This is actually going to make a splash. This one kind of makes a plop noise. All right. So if I'm in a situation where I'm choosing corks and I'm really trying to get a fish's attention, I'm not scared I'm going to spook him, I'm after a big fish, I'm competing with a lot of different noise, I may go with this concave application where I can move a lot of water. It will get a fish's attention. In front of me now are 4 different type corks of this application. So we're going to break it down a little bit further. If you look on the back of this cork, you'll see brass beads, okay? If you look on the back of this cork, you got brass beads and a washer. Exact same style cork. Up top, this one has round beads. This one has 3 beads in kind of crystal form. This cork's going to make a little bit more noise than this cork in the same application. They're both going to give you the splash. This one's going to give you a little bit more chatter. And breaking that down even further, this cork has a wire, actually a stiff wire, might I say. This one has a titanium wire. Okay. I want to highlight on that. Oftentimes, corks you may get hung up, you may catch a fish, you may get a nice fish beside the boat and somebody grabs it and all of a sudden you bend that wire. As you can see in this situation, that wire is not perfectly straight. This one's caught a few fish. It's gotten bent in the application of using it. You can straighten that back out with this cork because it has a lot of room for forgiveness. And your smaller corks, not so much. So, titanium, you can bend it, you can grab it. If you get a big fish on, it doesn't have the memory, it doesn't create the kinks that a wire situation will. So you know your titanium is going to run true most of the time. It's pretty forgiving. It's pretty forgiving when you catch fish if somebody's, if you grab it. Another application I've seen with these corks. Sometimes you can get around trophy red drum, especially in our area, and you may get a situation where the fish eats the cork. I've seen it done. I've had it happen many, many times. And in the situation of a wire cork or a stiff wire cork, fish eats the cork almost like it's a plug or something. The next thing you know, he puts a serious bend in that and you can no longer use that cork anymore. So if I'm in an area, a couple months out of the year, we'll have trophy red drum around. If I know they're around, a lot of times I'll go to that titanium wire. So if he comes up and eats that, I mean, you can fold that over and it's going to pop right back. Like I say, use it time and time again, it's going to run true. If you look at this cork, you're going to see glass beads on both ends. Exact same cork, hard wire, but on this situation you got beads on one end, brass beads on the other. This is going to give you a little bit more clack. All these corks make different noises. So when you're out fishing, I want you to think about the application that you're going to put it in. On my boat, I keep an array of corks. Matter of fact, all the corks you see ahead of me, I will keep and use them for different scenarios, use them for different situations. I'm going to slide the big corks off, and I want you guys to take a look at these smaller corks. I will oftentimes use these around trout. Couple different scenarios here once again. And hopefully you can see them through the packages, but I'm going to explain them. You've got a cork here with just like this, but a smaller profile. It's got double glass. We've got a cork here, smaller profile. It's hardwire, but it's glass up top, beads on the bottom. Just like this cork. Then on this end, we've got glass beads, and lead. All three of these corks will make a different noise in the water. And whenever I have customers that get on the boat and we're using different corks, or I have the ability day in, day out to see different corks in action, a lot of times I'll relate to different corks depending upon whether there's a lot of shrimp in the area. If there's a lot of shrimp in the area, I want a cork that kind of spits, doesn't make a lot of clack. A lot of times I'm going to the glass bead situation. I just want that spitting sound like shrimp are running. Its double glass beads, in my opinion, do a phenomenal job for that. If they're menhaden around, fish are actively busting, chasing them around. A lot of times I'll go to a double brass bead just because it makes a different, it makes a different pitch, a different volume in the water. And fish will respond to it differently. Sometimes I'll go to the lead if I want to kind of that soft medium, if I want it spitting and kind of clacking. So I want you guys to be well aware there are major differences in corks. When you're at the tackle shop and you're trying to decide which one, you may not know what, is the water going to be rough, is it going to be slick, or going to be menhaden there, or going to be shrimp there? Am I going after big fish, small fish, kind of what they're doing? You may want to take the opportunity, pick a few up, try them out. If you have 2 anglers on the boat or 3 anglers and buddy fishing, mix it up. See which cork works better. I think you will see your results, your catches pick up if you kind of pay attention to it. If you're, get them in tune. If the wire gets bent, try your best to straighten that out. You want that cork action working smooth as you can get it. Kind of going on to the corks, tell you guys the application that I use. Behind the cork, you're going to do a leader of choice. This can be fluorocarbon, it can be monofilament. Use what you would like to use, what you prefer. And a lot of times below the cork, I'm going to tie direct. And the whole application behind that cork, it gives you several functions. Number one, it's a noise maker. Number two, it suspends your bait. So if you're fishing over structure or you don't want your bait on the bottom, it gives you that chance to suspend that bait. Number three, it's basically a strike indicator. You get bit here, the cork goes down, you know when to set the hook. So there's several advantages and applications that cork fishing or popping cork fishing actually do for the angler. I don't care whether you're a beginner angler or an experienced angler. It's a weapon. It's a weapon of choice for me. So how long do you make your leader? Several factors come into that. Number one is castability. Otherwise, you don't want an extremely long leader that takes you out of the game when you're trying to make a cast. You want your leader to be somewhat close to the cork. So when you're fishing, it's actually an application. You can cast distance. You can cast with ease. You're not hooking on stuff on the boat, T-tops, other anglers. So a lot of times what I'm looking for is a leader that may be 18 to 24 inches long. This also depends on how stained the water is. There's a lot of different applications that go into that length of leader. But like I say, typical applications, I'm 18 to 24 inches. What I find is if the lure gets too far away from your cork, the fish will hear the cork, you're working the cork, it's popping and splashing on the water. The fish will key into, hey, what's making that noise? If you've got too long of a leader away from that cork, then the fish is more focused on this than he is your lure. So I find that there is a happy medium in that application to help you catch more fish. And I want to take a minute and touch on some of the lures that I use behind that. Most of the time it's soft plastics. And most of the time when I'm using a cork, I'm either putting a paddle tail behind it, or most popular situations, I'm putting a shrimp behind it. And I'm going to set these up here. These particular brands happen to be Billy Bay shrimp. And if you look here, you'll see one's a perfect sinker, one's a halo shrimp. What's the difference between the two? If you look at the perfect sinker, it has a different leg application. Body style's somewhat similar. Halo shad has a very sleek little short leg. The fall ratio on these two are totally different, made by the same company. I fish both of them, both the perfect sinker and the halo shrimp. And what I find is I will transition from one to the other depending on water temperature. Otherwise, when I start getting a cooler water situation, I like the perfect sinker just because of that slow rate of fall. When it's hot out, right now we're in July, all throughout my summer months, I will use the halo shrimp just because I can work a little faster. And, you know, the more time that you're working a lure, the more ground you can cover. A lot of times in the heat of the day, the temperatures we're at now, the more fish you catch, the more opportunities you have. Winter time's a little bit different story. You can slow it down a lot. Usually when you find the fish, you find all the fish in the winter, late fall. So, perfect sinker. I want it in, you know, when I find a fish, I know it's probably a school, so that application slows it down a lot. One of the key things I see when working corks, anglers need to keep in mind that sink rate, that fall rate, how hard they're popping it to keep that lure in its form, to keep it in that strike zone. And I guarantee if you start paying attention to the corks, matching it to the application that you have at hand, mixing it up a little bit. If you've been in an area, if you're fishing a creek that's high pressure, and let's just say everybody, a pretty common cork, right here, brass ball on the bottom. This is an extremely popular cork. I guarantee if you go into a creek that's had high pressure on it, and a lot of people are using that cork, and those fish have heard it time and time again and been caught by it. If you switch to a different cork that makes a different noise, I guarantee you'll see your catch ratio go up. Just simply because those fish have not been hooked by it. It's a different noise to them. It's not something they've heard 15 times already that day. So think about that and put it in application. There's one more cork I want to touch on, gang. This is a slip cork. Probably one of the most overlooked corks that I've seen. Even me, I have a tendency of knowing it works, but don't use it a lot. Now this works excellent a lot of times on live bait situations. But with this cork, you can fish any depth of water. I don't mind if it's 2 foot of water or 22 foot of water. This is actually a slip float. And looks like so. Straight out of the package, it comes either orange or yellow in this particular brand. Depending on the time of the day, depending on your eyesight, depending on the color of the water, you can flip this where it's the orange side up or that chartreuse side up. And it comes out of the package with a tie that looks like so. And it comes out with a couple of different beads. And I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to pretend like this is my rod and reel. Line coming off the rod and reel. And what you will do is, simple application. You guys have got to try this. If you haven't used it, pick one up, give it a try. Works. Excellent. Excellent for drifting live baits. Excellent for fishing deep water. Make sure you do this first. This is the complex issue that makes a lot of people not like this cork. You're going to slide your line coming off your rod and reel through this sleeve, just like so. This is basically a Chinese handcuff. You slip it off. You slip that little Chinese handcuff piece off that plastic slide. That goes in the trash. This Chinese handcuff has 2 ends, and you're actually going to pull those tight. And it creates a stop on that line. Now, the great thing about this is you can manually slide this up that line to be anywhere. So that's what I say, you can fish 5 foot of water, 15 foot of water. Then comes a bead. And what this bead does, it acts as that Chinese handcuff deal acts as a stop. The bead is what makes it stop. Then you can apply your float. We fish tannic water a lot, so I like chartreuse up. You're simply going to slide that through. And now you can tie this to a hook to a live bait. You can tie it on an artificial bait, and you've got a slip cork. It will not allow that bait to go any deeper than you set that stop. And like I say, you can slide that up the line 15 feet, 5 feet. You can set it at whatever, you can fish whatever depth you want. And when you get ready to make the cast, all this slides down. So when you make the cast, it's not a, there's not a cumbersome length. So great cork, give them a try. Try out this application if you're using live bait or artificials. If you've never used a slip cork, I guarantee you'll like it. You can cast it a long ways. You can fish deep water with it. It's a great tool. And be sure to trim these little tags. That way you can reel it up on your reel to go through your guides, and just makes for I guarantee if you do it, if you haven't done it, I guarantee you'll be, man, why hadn't I done that sooner? If you have done it, haven't used it in a while, maybe this will motivate you to give it another try. But anyways, gang, that's a little highlight on some tips and techniques. I hope you use it. I hope you learned something. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the buttons. If you're looking for a charter, look us up, FISHIBX.com. We'd love to have you. Stay safe. Happy fishing.